Okay, I'm gonna do a. I thought I was gonna do a paper review, but I'm thinking about this right now. And I'm gonna do a anime review. I didn't do it in the mall. I was thinking of doing some other Twitter tweets for a while. I was there for a short while, but I wasn't there for that long. So, alright, so let's look at what's with this review. I pay attention to this mostly, not really for any other reason, other because it talks about a lot about the past. So this guy, I don't know who his name is. I don't really pay attention to too much of the manga, but Wang Wang decides that he wants to evolve, right? He doesn't really want to. That's kind of why he chose to go back to being a slave. Right? He wants to go back to being a slave. Why do you think he chose to be in chains, right? This is so a lot of people like to talk about free will, but no one really in life wants to pay the price for free will. Right? I'm an SJW. I know what's going on, right? Because when I first started my Twitter feed, I didn't start out as a left-winger, right? I gave a proposal. I said, you let me be as much of a hypocrite as I want, right? In the form of stupidity. Right? Even the SJWs kind of larked and called. I'm just betting on a premonition. Yeah, and so and we keep talking about this. Right, you know, we were talking about 2 scoops at the same time. We're okay with AOC with 2 scoops. I don't remember all the scandals, but my general gut feeling is you're pretty much allowed to flip-flop in the name of justice, right? And so I'm taking advantage of the situation. So anyways, anyone wants to call me out? Feel free. I think I can legally do it. So anyways, I think the flexibility is worth more than having a stable, fluid position. Gives me more leeway. It makes me more immune to stuff. And if you're grumpy, right, especially given a hectic workday and you do dumb stuff, right, because you're in a lower sleep mode, you can just get away with banning people. That's the other important thing. Right? It all centers on banning people too. Right? If you can ban people, you can get away with a lot of stuff. I'm triggered, right? So I'm trying to make my stance, borrow some of that bulletproofness. And of course, I'm not taking anything for granted. I'm also patting myself, right? I'm also talking about forgiveness, right? That intelligence is simply not worth it. In fact, being stupid with the willingness to change your mind is worth more than intelligence ever was. In fact, I'd argue that gives you an infinite amount of intelligence. And so I talk about this. This is a very popular. This is a reason I joined. I think viewpoints change all the time depending on which new tech comes out. Right. You may not be able to get socialism with a Type 1 civilization. You might not be able to get it with a Type 3. Right. Conditions change all the time. And people will believe in other points of view because it's more beneficial for them and because it may not be the system that gave rise to it. It may not be as efficient, but people just want to enjoy what they have, and you want to learn how to go with the flow at times. It's kind of an insurance policy. Not doing this for any moral cause. I'm doing this to protect myself, right? So let's talk about why he doesn't find being free worth it. This is like in ancient times Rome. He wants his needs taken care of. He doesn't want any expectations put on him. People choose slavery when they don't want expectations that come with freedom. That's kind of the problem with today's American society. Everyone wants freedom with no strings attached, right? There is no time in American history where it was prosperous and great, where people got all these first, second, third amendments, right? By the way, amendments rhymes with almost commandments. I'm just telling you right now, the Holy Lord is somewhere over there. They sort of rhyme, and there's a reason why, because it's real. Ever wonder why the DC is haunted? Right? Comedy Central made a joke about that. They could play it off as, oh, it's not real. There's definitely something over there. You can pretend like that may not be God. I don't know what it is. But something is over there. There's been multiple comedians making jokes about the place being haunted. No one wants to talk about what's over in DC, right, at night. This is why people don't want to be in the White House, okay? Obama's hair didn't go gray or white. All out of, like, just happened, right? You have to account for this. And this is one of those things. And you learn, I'm just telling you, that's just, there's strings. When you don't pay for those strings, you get debts. You get a fake economy. You get things that trickle down over time. It's the ripple effect. Am I doing anything productive these days? No, this is a lot of, this is reality, but reality is always, is basically fear-mongering at this point. There is, if you want optimism, right, from me, we need to stop lying about stuff. Period. You want optimism? We need honesty first. Then we can talk about legitimate optimism for the economy. We live in a society that ghosts people a lot. Well, let's stop ghosting. Well, I'll give you some real optimism. Confront what's going on. You know, be willing to make mistakes and figure out how to move forward. If you're not going to do that, don't talk to me about optimism. There is no optimism. Optimism is born from honesty. There is no way to interpret this any other way. Honesty is the light. I'm sorry. It's just one of those things people don't want to talk about. I do these videos because I enjoy what I'm doing and I find it useful for me to learn stuff. I'm not really doing anything for cash. I'm doing stuff to develop and learn stuff. I have a personal belief in something that I don't want to talk about anymore. You gotta stop pretending like you just got the First Amendment free of charge, you guys. America. Right? If you're a First Amendment believer, you're progressive, you gotta support these other amendments, right? You gotta support the second. You don't like it, that's fine. I'm not really that big of a believer in the First Amendment either. Now I have the freedom to believe that and not pretend like my party is a bunch of hypocrites. Right? Not even Christians are real Christians these days. Right? Not everyone needs to pray to be not everyone who follows God God doesn't need people to pray all the time. Right? I talked about this already. They need people to do different things at different times. That makes more sense for an omnipotent being. This is why I join a movement that doesn't even represent itself. Right? Well, I mean, you can talk about Donald all you want, but Donald is a progressive. So he fought for lower taxes. You know, progressives fought for lower taxes. I think we should fight for lower taxes too. As a progressive. Yeah, we can. There's some states that benefit with that. Maybe you can get universal health care. You know, everyone's different. Right? Sacrifice for the greater good. I don't understand people these days. It's like, you can. Some conservative states already act left-wing. You might as well. Texas acts like a left-wing state already. It doesn't matter if it's red, dude. It acts like a welfare state. There's big tech. A lot of people are getting tax breaks, and they're getting their property taxes paid with loans from the U.S. government. Doesn't this sound like socialism? There's low taxes, but you're still getting a lot of benefits like food stamp like benefits, right? We're just all and look, there's lower. All that tells me is well, if you don't want high taxes, right, to pay for stuff, that's fine. We can just make our country's deficit bigger. I know what Ted says. I think is it Texas has a low, but I don't believe that, to be honest. It doesn't matter. Let's see if their low deficit or high. If it's high, okay. So there's a budget surplus, right? Right. Tax revenue surges, right? They don't tax people highly. They're just making a different bet. But they're also taught. But there's a lot of blow kickbacks. You can say that, and those kickbacks are very liberal in nature. Now they're liberal for the rich people. You're betting that if you're liberal progressive for the rich people, and you get more stuff, right? Yeah, Texas, is it conservative? I think it's purple or leftist, right? That's why I think there was a lot of liberals that just influx at Texas lately. And you were like, well, that's recent. No, it's always been like that. Texas is able to get progressive companies to move over. They have all this tech investment, and they give you low taxes. In return, they get to enjoy like the CEOs get to enjoy like really fluid healthcare, right? And progressive in nature, just progressive for rich people. It doesn't mean anything. And poor people, it's not explicitly stated, but I lived there for a short while, and I did check some of the tax papers. There is a progressive tax structure. It's just not called taxes, right? You'll see this. The living cost is low, but I'm talking about personal danger. That's the progressive tax I'm talking about. And a lot of the safety gear costs quite a bit, actually. And it honestly cancels out, in my opinion, the tax cuts. And you see a lot of price surges on those products. I think the press controllers cost more. Right? The pest controllers are costing a fuck ton. Pest controllers cost more. Accountants cost more, depending on the circumstances. It's way easier. There's a lot of paperwork that you have to deal with for starting what I call a business with a stable structure. There's structural issues within a lot of these architectural buildings, right? And so they may not give you will collect. They'll collect their progressive tax essentially from the building. Same for the houses, right? If you're willing to live with cockroaches and scorpions, go for it. It's not really low rent, depending on who you are. There's sneakier ways, sneakier things they do. That doesn't mean it's not. I don't know if you're broke, you're desperate, you might as well go, right? Just go. Who cares? Who cares, guys? There's rodents around the area. That's why a lot of companies go there. They just go there to restructure. I have nothing wrong with that. It's just what it is. I think it's purple. I want to say leftist, even though it's conservative. Right? That doesn't mean they have to vote for a Democratic representative. They're just. I think Texas is full of progressives who don't like high taxes, but they have a different idea of how to achieve the same thing. That's my opinion. And progressives, unfortunately, do not have any wiggle room these days. If you're against like the high taxes, they kind of are a conservatard, right? I don't agree with that. If you're an SJW, feel free to agree with that. Disagree with me on this part. Everyone has different ideas. But I'll be honest. There are times when you're like, yeah, I'm for high taxes, but then there's some of these states where you're like, yeah, it's progressive, but I would benefit a lot more from a lower tax. Maybe I'll buy more goods anyways, even if it costs more. Maybe like, I don't know, Connecticut? I don't know. New York? you feel an exception in your heart. I mean, low taxes for New York, maybe it booms for a while. You know it's in your head. Other states that are leftist, you don't care. I want a progressive tax structure. Yeah, I mean, people are thinking that. They look at the sky high cost of the subway and everything. I was like, can I get lower taxes? I may just spend more in the long run. They don't think exactly like that, but it's definitely on their mind. Well, progressive, and that's because we don't like bringing up these uncomfortable questions, right? Because this is a money, what about me question. And the other thing is we don't want to appear as a hypocrite in society. But the thing is, anytime you join a party, everyone has different edge cases in which they sort of don't really align. That's what it means to be any individual living on this planet. I'm just telling you a popular edge case that makes people leave because that's the only acceptable reason. I think they should have a more welcoming attitude. I don't think people should just attack people for being against a progressive tax structure, depending on where they live. If you want to have a debate, that's fine. I'm not against that. But I don't think people should just go partisan attack. Oh, you sound like a conservative. Because let's be honest here, a lot of people at the end of the day still care about their rent. Maybe if there are more businesses come in New York, this is a legitimate problem. I know Young Turks doesn't cover it. But this is a legitimate problem in New York, the high sky taxes, right? You sound like, no, you don't have to be a conservative to criticize the tax structure, right? This is too partisan. You can still be for socialism. Who said you had to be a right winger? People can have different ideas on stuff. What's wrong with that? Right? Maybe you want more stuff from that state. People, when they go into politics, they want to get stuff from people. At the end of the day, it's going to boil down to you. Sure, it's about us. But at the end of the day, it's going to come down, what about me? That question exists somewhere along the global supply chain of the economy, right? We start with, like, if you look at a transportation network, we start with a lot of nodes, and then we narrow it down to one node, which is you, the individual. You have to think about yourself. So while some of these other progressive states benefit from a progressive tax structure, or there's an argument for it, there's going to be a few, you know deep inside, they do not benefit from a progressive tax structure. You know they get more from a low tax structure, or a flat one. If you were to honestly think to yourself, are there exceptions because of the way the geography of where the state is located, because of who's coming in and out, there is an exception to this rule. Ever wonder why omnibus bills come into being? Maybe New York wants to take over some of these other progressive states financially, right? And the others are, no, I want to keep it progressive, right? Progressive tax structure. This is where the conflict starts. Because everyone pretends like we really are on the same page, but the reality is we're not truly on the same page. We are on the same page for achieving that goal. But in terms of, do we all agree on that methodology? Well, it sort of depends. The problem is this conversation has to be brought up. So what happens is it doesn't get brought up on the news. It gets brought up on the Washington, D.C. It gets brought up in the halls of Congress. So what these politicians spend their time doing is, this is why I'm always saying you're better off being a slave than a free guy to some extent, because you may not want to deal with this type of complexity. When you're truly free, you have to deal with this complexity. You have to take responsibility for these individual intermediaries that are acting. They may not be worth your time. This is why I'm always for maybe you should classify information on the actual contents of the omnibus bill. Nowadays, I don't even care. I'll just bring it up what my doubts are. So the politicians, they're in D.C., right? They're vacationing. They're not really vacationing. They're not taking breaks. They're talking to these people who hate each other, these same progressives. I'm telling you straight up, you may have noble goals, you may have noble intentions, but you still got to think about the little guy to some extent. This is why Obama couldn't get anything done in his second term or his first term. He finds out that as much as we appear to be on the same page as progressives, we're actually very different. Because as a politician, to make a law pass, you got to present all these edge cases. Right? It says, okay, do you truly support, we got to present some utilitarian arguments, right? Do you truly support a progressive tax structure? Let's go through these 50,000 edge cases. Okay, you cannot do that in the halls of DC. You got to do door to door. They do that, okay? When they're vacationing in their house remotely, they are not wasting time. But you cannot talk about that in front of the news media because you give away who these people, who these interest groups are, who are barking, who are fighting. And they're in the same party as you. This is one of the reasons at SJW I'm very much, it appears that I'm very much against, I'm only for limited censorship, right? Only if the corporation wants it. I am for censorship depending on what the circumstances are. You're only going to get me like anti-censorship when the American public actually wants to pay the price for freedom and not just pretend like they want freedom, right? And let's see what happens. So not everyone's for progressive. And what about infrastructure bill? No, everyone hates each other on there too. Why do you think they're taking vacation? They need to visit these people. They are not relaxing in the Taj Mahal Palace. Okay, Nancy is not screwing around. She is talking to these people. She can't talk to them and give away their names because the news media will ask what their names are. How could they not? Because it's a beautiful scandal. And it's a scandal that's going to start exploding. How could it not explode? Then you're going to be like, what's the global supply chain for all these enemies? Well, I don't want to give, oh no, you just say nothing. Because as a politician, it's like, well, I know the American public doesn't pay me anything. It's another country. What is in my best interest? Well, it's true. I'm Barack Obama. I'm a true progressive, right? I'm an aggressive progressive. But at the end of the day, do I want to make $0 a year? Oh no, I'm going to go sell out. Oh well. You really think people don't do? They all do this, okay? People never say what they mean when it comes to money. And if you're powerful, you do need money to some extent to extend it, right? Nothing gets done without power. Why do I want to talk about this now? I've always known I keep it secret because I don't want to tell society that truth. A lot of people do not like honesty in the office, so they're probably not going to like honesty in public. Right? Yeah. It's so painful. Hey, look, I'm honking at you as I drive past you in I-5. I'm triggered. Makes you feel better as an SJW. They call you out for trip. Just remember, everyone does car crashes when they're angry. Everyone wonders, SJWs don't come out from accident. You know who you are. You learn from the best, right? The conservatives. If raised the wrong way, they do become an SJW, assuming they're bad. You know you started road rage. Do not pretend like you didn't. You want to put an actually argument? You took responsibility for the past. The past was fantastic. You own it now. This is fantastic, right? Right? We live in a mostly largely Christian nation, right? Own it, buddy. You derived from something far worse. You're a derivative, right? You are an offshoot of that branch, and there is no shame in being what you are. You don't want to address this topic. You know you bring it up, everyone's going to try to kill you. And you bring it online, but honestly, people, look, I'm going to put some context. I put this up, people, and here's the other thing I'm going to put out. And here is something that, I'm going to go look at the last chapter before, because it's offshoot of a bunch of topics. I'm going to go look at the last chapter for, and it's about MGTOW. So this chick is trying to breed with this guy. I don't know anything about this manga. It's just fun to read. I don't really have any real friends. And what ends up happening in the end is this chick who was reluctant, right? The artwork's fantastic anyway, who was reluctant to get together with him, and it's like wang, I don't know. I ignore the innuendos for this. It's running out of names. I don't read manga as much. I just like doing a lot of these short bits for a reason. So what ends up happening? She ends up actually intercoursing with him, even though he doesn't want to, right? He was willing to go back to getting shot and killed. So here's the problem. He never wanted to be free. He didn't want to take responsibility. He didn't want to kill people. He didn't want to make hard choices. You choose slavery if you don't want to make dark choices. Dostoevsky's slave master morality exists for a reason. Some people might choose slavery. A lot of Americans did. They did when they didn't help Nancy read the omnibus bill, right? Why complain about your politician? Why don't you ask Nancy, hey, send me a copy of that bill? You guys don't care about freedom. A lot of Americans don't. You don't need a vote. Just give Nancy something that makes more money. Or something safe. Do not need a vote. Do not need to do jury duty. This is the stuff that matters, okay? This is so the politicians have less time talking to them. A lot of Democrats are never on board, the ones that actually influence change. They're never on board with anything. Oftentimes, they may use the Republicans as chips to stonewall Nancy. You didn't know that? Oh, you didn't know left-wing companies don't collaborate with right-wing companies? Yo, SJW, as an SJW, that's reality. You really think a lot of these progressives are actually on the same board? The rich ones? No, they don't. They're not on board. They just pretend they're on board with stuff. And then it was like, well, how much money are you willing to shell for some public roads? How much do you need from the U.S. government? Right? That is the day of the office, okay? And you know what they're going to say? Well, I'm willing to pay for some infrastructure if I see some people not paying for security. I want some cheaper real estate. I have a proposal for being pro-Second Amendment. Oh, that's from a left-winger? Oh, no. Some of us want some free stock from Twitter. You know that's a progressive. You know you got to deal with something like this, Obama. I was like, let me talk down your expectations. You want some money, Obama? You're not getting any money from the American public this year. This is how he's like, oh, that's reality. And the voters, nowhere. You know, he could tell the truth if he wants, but then he's like, they didn't offer me any cash. He could just come out. That would be a safe way of saying, hey, I'm not actually paid this amount of money. I'm paid zero or negative, right? You gonna say anything? Well, here's the problem with those kind of conversations. It becomes an explosion chat, right? No one wants to deal with it. Obama, face the nation. I'm not paid anything by the American public. I'm going the way of Geocities. That does not sit well with anybody. In fact, if anything, the news media would be like, what are you talking about, Obama? That's fake news. Oh, here's my paperwork. No one wants to do that. I wouldn't. If I got into office. I would never do that. Why would you even tell the truth on that? All of a sudden, it's like, we need a progressive tax structure. You need to pay me something. You're not going to pay me my $500K a year. Any takers? Where's my Kickstarter fund? And even then, that's a short. You give it away. It's like, well, I'm actually your parent. Right? So a lot of these lobbyists will basically tell you, you need to purchase my goods first before I let the omnibus bill pass. That's my speculation. Right? I need some new influx of customers. Like, this has nothing to do with infrastructure. And then you say, oh, this is what it has to do. In return, I provide you some materials. I don't want money necessarily. I want a resource exchange. Oh, everyone has different ideas what money is? Wow. Really? And if you're a conservative, if you're an SW, conservatives don't have to worry about censorship. You know what happens? Because conservatives get killed off by their own anyways. I love the rich people. Where's my manufacturing jobs, right? Right. Conservatives, they got their power by telling the truth, which they don't tell the truth about, by the way. Now here's the problem with the conservative movement, at least as I see it. They don't even want. Donald was there. So because Donald failed and didn't even give you this kind of conversation, they actually have no chance of winning again. Now, if Donald did that on his first term, I would have been okay. They took too much of a wild shot and shot themselves too much in the foot. Now, if you want to start with a low budget, I'm always for social justice. I have flexibility, I can change viewpoints, I can sort of be a centrist and be safe. Sort of be a little bit at first, a little bit of I want to ban people. It's some flexibility on my political ammunition, right? Anyways, I got caught off track. Anyways, women chase guys who want to die for a higher purpose. That is the basic summary of what I'm talking about. Right? This guy wanted to die, didn't want to have the responsibility of making hard choices. He wanted to die for the purpose of living in a world where he can live in an illusion. That's a higher purpose. She chose to burden him with free will by having sex with him so he can live, right? He has to take more responsibility. A lot of people don't want free will. He's by choosing to live in an illusion, he appears to himself to be a greater person. Because he wants to not change his morality system of someone being soft-hearted and gentle. And that's kind of the price. Anyways, this is a on topic. So anyways, how many intermediaries are there? Thousands. We're counting other countries that want part of the infrastructure. Oh, I'm not giving you that pipe. This pipe cannot be sold for $20 per unit, right? It must be sold for $5. You know, this is Nancy's job. She's like the whole session while she's on vacation, quote unquote. I'm zing. I don't want to pay $5,000. You need to pay me what I'm worth. Otherwise, I'm going to poke some right-leaning companies that are friendly to a lower tax structure. I'll tell you why this is subjective. All of a sudden, these left-leaning companies become right-leaning. Wow. Oh, that's fantastic. This is so subjective. You really thought Chick-fil-A is the only one who's that annoying. Before we can talk about infrastructure, why don't we talk about our gender hiring quotas? I don't want these quotas to exist. Is there a way to make me look good in front of the eyes of the public and at the same time let me get away with being a dick? Right? I want to support progressivism and not really. Can I? I can? Really? Oh, never mind. I withdraw. Oh, you didn't know that? I'm so sorry, buddy. You really thought I cared about public infrastructure? Oh, fuck that shit. Why don't I help you poke Google instead? Oh, Sundir. Here's my right-leaning Tekistan name in your Nancy's office. Nancy, what's up? Sundir HIC. You know, this is what's going on. The entire omnibus deal is a 4chan chat. That is what this is. It's a 4chan cryptocurrency black market transaction chat. That is all this is. Yeah, well, this is when we hash out our details. This is what happens when you don't pay for anything, America. you get this kind of shitstorm. And then finally, after 2 to 5 months of negotiation, trust me, that is the exact time span to get anything passed. After everyone stopped throwing rocks at each other because they feel like they're worth more, we finally come to a conclusion for one infrastructure bill. And I'll ask you, because you're a consumer, right? How many times have you hesitated on purchasing anything? That is the nature of an omnibus bill. I do not want to spend even $1 for your ass-fag company, right? You're fired. You don't really mean it. This is what people don't want to show on TV. Why would a politician not bring it up? They have a lot of other things to do than to bring up something this complex. They have a wife, family, kids. They have free time. This takes a lot of time to explain. I literally took me like 5 years to think about what the hell's going on with the omnibus because I actually read the details. It's just a bunch of people that want more money from each other. And at the end of the day, Obama finds out all of these so-called progressive companies are actually right-wing companies. Whoa! Mind-boggling. They actually use McConnell when it benefits them. It turns out it's not, and they use the minority party as a bargaining chip to get more stuff out of Mr. Obama. These so-called progressives don't actually support progressivism. As an SJW, I have to break this to you. That's life. That is life. You do change your mind when money's involved. We all do, okay? You want an idealist, you got to pay more. You want a true firebrand, aggressive, progressive, which, by the way, you don't need to get socialism. Nope. Progressives, a true one could get you something more. I'm not denying that part, but until we start discussing salary caps, we're not getting anywhere. He's like, well, what about the money? There's no salary. And it's like, well, I'm paid $5. Are we talking about who's the payer, right? United States is such a vague term. What does that mean? You're convoluting so many terms. And that's what the omnibus bill, it just convolutes the term. So everyone's fighting, oh, I want units, right? I may not want, yes, Nancy, I do want, I will give you 5,000 units of pipe. All of a sudden we went from, hey, we just needed to build a pipe for like New York sewage system to, I need 5,000, we've got bartered down to 5,000 pipes. What the hell are we talking about? Are we talking about kids now too? You get lost because a lot of these people purposely sidetrack you. And then you want to forget about it. You do want to forget about it, trust me. Because this is a construction bid process. No one wants to pay quite yet. They want you to learn to listen to their personal sob stories. You cannot release this footage to anyone in the public. Because you very soon find out that all the left-leaning companies that supposedly support you, they're all right-wingers now. When it comes to money, because we live in a consumerist culture, it's like, hey, no one actually buys stuff from my company. And the joke is, it's not even the CEOs half the time. Sometimes they poke Jeff Bezos. Go talk to Amazon. Help me sell it. I'm serious right now. I think that is what is actually going on. Because they have to they're trying to pin them down. They need to pin these lobbyist groups down to invest in something. But the problem is they all act like cheddar rats and run away. I don't really actually want to pay. Why don't we do a progressive tax structure, and instead of it being on me, how about it be on the American people? Oh, you can't do that? Why don't we discuss about you? I'll ask for something else. I want some Amazon storefront businesses. I couldn't start a few successful ones a couple years back. Jeff has kind of ghosted me. Jeff acted like a pirate. Can you help me, Nancy Pelosi? In return, I will give you 20 units of pipe for free and some mechanic to go fix the pipe system for me. I think New York poops too much. There's too much sewage to deal with. Let's nickel and dime them. I'm sorry, Obama. I have to go talk about my party now. This is why they stole. Oh, you don't want to listen to me? I'm going to stonewall you. How many seats do the Republicans have in the House? Oh, you thought they're losers? Now they're W's all of a sudden. Because none of them are getting enough money. It does get passed. Yes, it does. In return, Obama, you need to have a closed border stance. Thank you, Mr. Obama. I give up. Just pass it. Thank you. That is what the phrase is. You're welcome. You smile because you know if you actually argue for your point of view, it's going to be another shitstorm. What ends up happening is some companies get profits and the others get like 1%. It's like, that's good enough for me. They start ridiculous, of course. You need to bump my company 5 times of what it was originally. Everyone becomes a conservative asset. It's true. Trying to find not to use cuss words, but they do cuss. I almost guarantee you they cuss in these meetings. And then they, of course, they act racist. Of course they do. And this is Obama's term. Now, they're not all right-leaning. Sometimes they're left. Like, there's a good cop and bad cop routine. I'm nice. I'm progressive. I think we should be a little more generous to... I'll be generous to the poor people as long as we're generous to these companies. And everyone does this. You're supposed to figure... You can already decipher because you're in D.C., Nancy, for like a decade or two. You know what that exactly means. It means you take one for the team in return for starting a new business venture. I'm telling you right now, you have no idea. This is the political sausage you're dealing with. Everyone wants a slice of the pie. And no one wants to pay. I can pay. I'll poke China. China wants to be industrious, brave. They want to expand their new storefront and attack Amazon. You know, Jeff hasn't been my best friend lately. He just downed FedEx. I don't like his new DSP delivery system. Can Alibaba challenge Jeff Bezos, Sama? Yes, they do say Sama at the end, I'm pretty sure. I don't like Jeff back in the day. I was a warehouse worker. He treated me like dirt. Now I'm big CEO man now. I'm taking you down with me, buddy. Pew! You know, they make immature airplane sounds. And of course, if they're bold, in which a lot of them are, they'll do it in front of Jeff. Jeff has to smile and look away. He knows what this is. He doesn't actually hate Jeff, but you know, they're enemies right now. Of course, Soonier is like, how do I attack Amazon? I don't know how. I need some pointers, Nancy. Of course, he does it right in front of Jeff. Jeff is like, I'm okay with being nice today. Because that's the whole point, to get Jeff to ante up so he doesn't get broken down. Or have a corporate coup, of course. They do this all the time. And you, as politicians, like, I get paid vacation because I'm not getting paid anyways. DC has always been like that. Oh, what's on here? I am so sorry that the American people had to hear how an omnibus deal is negotiated, but it's more about what about me first? And then I'll design the pipes for you. Okay, you got this done. Okay, I'll get some of the sewage to start working. I don't want New York. New York sucks. They're taxing me too much. Yes, if you're a left-leaning business and you operate on Canada, you are going to think like that. Yes, you are. They all act like that. This is reality. Does any of them act like... Some of them are more generous, don't get me wrong. They act like centrists. And the thing about Nancy is she doesn't really have time. There are deals they'll offer, actually, that involve universal health care. But the thing is, Nancy has to pick sides over which lobbyist groups are more important than others. Does she really want to do that right now? No, we got to make sure all of them are happy. We can't choose 20 out of the 5,000. That just creates a shitstorm. Nothing gets resolved when everyone wants their own. What about me, 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 me? Well, I want some real estate property this guy owns from Windermere. This guy right here, Jacob, right? Can I get it for free if you get, and I'll build you, I'll give you the entire infrastructure bill. He has a cult too. I kind of want to take advantage of it. You know, these questions are floated on DC. And when Obama first, I almost guarantee you, when Obama tried being idealistic, no, we need this now, and then what they get is they got a whoopee cushion fart bag, and they just they're being honest about what negotiation sounds like. I want to pick sides. That's too much of a shitstorm. And what sides would you pick? You would pick the monopoly, of course. Hey, you can protect me against these interest groups that are trying to kill me. I can find a cheap way to give you something like UBI. No one wants to do it because it's expensive. Oh, there you go. The monopoly grows. They all hate each other. They all want territory. They want power. They want prestige too. And it's like, well, I'm progressive. I'm now conservative all of a sudden. They all move there. It's like, I have a change of mind. Yes, you suddenly did. You will act like that once you form your own business. If you're an SJW, start a business, you will start thinking like that. Jimmy, I bet you, has days where he thinks like that too. You know, I don't really want progressive taxes applied on me because I feel like I can spend the money for progressive causes better. Oh, this is how we start now. Yeah, there you go. Then nothing gets done. No, stuff does get done. So what ends up happening is, okay, 1% growth. Okay, you do the pipes. It's like, okay, let's take one for the team. Let's work together. Everyone, let's float up some party. It's like, okay, this bill got stalled long enough. It's arbitrary. That's the point. You're not paying, someone else is paying. Now everyone, okay, X company Y, right? You know, Planeteer installs WMS software to make sure the pipes go well, whatever, right? Or system database information system, right? Just make sure all the pipes are moving well, all the aluminum material, all the sewer lids, right? They're all properly inserted. There you go. All the maintenance costs are properly done. You know, company X, I'm dividing tasks in 4 other companies. And Nancy's like, well, I guess we're done vacationing. We got death oaths or whatever. We got paper written in stone. Everything's done. Everyone hates Jeff Bezos. I'm going to go ignore that and drink some beer. Jeff, meanwhile, he's just there to protect himself. He gets something. Not make him hella happy. The joke is you only need one lobbyist group to give you exactly what a progressive wants, but you have to play favorites in the office, which, by the way, no one wants to do. If you don't want to play favorites in the office, you're not going to do it in DC, buddy. You're only as good as your smallest unit, right? It's not happening. It will never happen. Might as well blow your nose. Play favorites openly. Don't want to have a transparent conversation on why this guy's your favorite. We're done. Forget about anything. I will if I have to, right? If I'm that desperate. I'll openly explain in Fireside Chat why I pick one over the others. We're done here because America doesn't want to pay for anything. They never do. They've been shorting people since I think we had like contingency bills, like contingency currencies for a while. Yeah, America has never wanted to pay something since 1776. I remember the American currency was like pretty worthless. It was worthless for a reason. It's because people didn't want to pay for something. They wanted like some other country to pay for their stuff. Nothing gets done in DC, and of course the politicians who used to be paid what to do this, they used to be paid trillions of dollars to do legitimate work. Nowadays it's just a billion. Because China likes nickel and diming you. They look at the market rate they look at is from back in 1776. They're not looking at market rates from today, right? Because we've been cheapening ourselves since, oh dear lord, the late 1800s. And the last time we cheapened ourselves was when Britain invaded, which was like 18 something. And DC burned. That was the last time we even bothered. Britain got pissed off. They got really pissed off. One of the reasons they got pissed off because they had a legitimate currency established by the crown, where the politicians were paid equally, and they got pissed off because America chose to resolutely refuse to pay politicians. They started shortening them. They got pissed off for the sake of the American politicians. So they couldn't pay officially, so they made some trade relationship deal. I don't remember. I think Britain and U.S. fought. There was something. There was a conflict. I don't know if it's better, but I just know there was a conflict where they got materials from Britain. That was some great battle. Let's look at the battles. I don't remember. Let's look this up. The War of 1812, right? So this was a passive-aggressive war. What they're really talking about. So this is pretty early. So America started shortening their politicians that made trillions. They were still making trillions, but it wasn't as much, right? A lot of resources started drying up. They were making a little more than that. Extra commission fees, right? Yeah, because they basically made purchasing decisions on behalf of the people. Indirectly. So they've been doing this for a while. So what happened? So a lot of politicians made extra money and got their trillions from the Trafalgar trade, right? They got it. They got a lot of it from maritime dealings with the crown. Right? They had competitors. They made money from both sides of the trade, the Yankees and the British trade. They helped set up business for politicians. They helped them. They dedicated because a lot of these businesses were not confident in starting any business without promise, right? That there'd be customers. So their job was to control the currency and move it in a way. Their job is to do legitimate research on these companies and purchase stuff so the American citizens feel confident to move. Right, Lord Liverpool. So they're pretty transparent about what's going on, right? Under Lord Liverpool, you have back then the U.S. pooled their funds to Great Britain. Great Britain pooled their funds in return, right? Americans didn't think independence was worth it. They sort of ceded it. There was something passive aggressive. So Liverpool, because America wanted to live back then, they sort of chose not to live. When they say Lord Liverpool, it's passive aggressiveness. They pooled their resources that were worth trillions. I think the starseeds were here back then, so they also obviously helped. They gave money. Who knows if it came from magic? Who knows where it is, but they gave money. And then Britain started paying the politicians, and the businesses started paying the politicians. It was never the citizens. No one paid. And in the maritime trade, they gave a lot of resources even when they won, right? They gave it to the politicians so that they could sell it back to America, right? Because sometimes the politicians were actually the innovators. Because a lot of the people who innovated were not comfortable doing anything. So the politicians had to be the Nikola Teslas of the world. Do not want to talk about it. They gave them hexes and stuff. This is how they get their fortune. Yep, they got money and they got a safe cheddar, right? Because the government made sure there was an accurate influx of customers. They weren't centralizing their businesses. They were trying to play the accurate game of indirect influence. They made sure, like when they bought it, they made sure they gave their opinion on what their global supply chain should be. And you know, whoever bought their goods first has the most sway over how the business is ran. People did this all the time. And when the business was down, they would always be the first buyer in trying to control the human crowd psychology. So they would be the first buyer. They purchase their goods, and they purchase it in a way that made sure that encourages other consumers to go. How they did it privately is they sent their government workers, and they basically poked. It wasn't the president or commander-in-chief. They had to do it on their own free will. They had to do it in their spare time without any prompting. This is where private action takes place, right? And the situation they would intervene was, hey, look, business is down. No one wants to purchase these units. It's because of some company scandal. Who wants to buy? I don't want to purchase. I think the goods look good, right? But I'm terrified to purchase them. Who moves? The U.S. government. And those are the first buyers. You don't know for sure it's them. You suspect it's them. And the goal of the CEO is not to tell them. And yes, they do talk about this in the news snippets, which they burn for protection purposes. And that is pretty much what it is, because if they air it and they keep and it's protection because they don't spread it to the public. The public knows later on. They get a redacted version. They know this because the anti-federalists in the beginning cued them in. That's why they protest, because they wanted free will in purchasing. So everyone remembers the Federalist War. Now they know what the game is. Right? So why did the war happen? The war happened when America said, hey, look. The American people decided, you know what? Fuck it. I do not want to pay, period. I do not want to help the politicians establish their own business. I don't want to give them anything. Well, Britain says, you want to dissolve the alliance, America? It's war then. And now we have the War of 1812. And the politician's like, well, I want to enforce. Nope. We'll short you instead. We're paying you 6 figures. Politician, no one protects them. They're forced to take that deal. And now they have to fight. That is what I think actually happened in the War of 1812. Yeah, and the French, of course, they help pay the politician's paycheck. At this point in time, you got to think about your life. You got to think, what's my priority? As much as I want to complain about it, I can't move. At least the Americans are still paying me, right? So at the end of the war, and I put this quotation marks, DC burns, right? Because they hesitate too much. The right move, and I'll be honest, would be to, and here's the right move to prevent DC from burning. It would be to give the Americans the finger. Nope, I take $0. You need to go back and negotiate with Britain, the Crown. Otherwise, why? Nope, we're gonna burn down DC. We're gonna politically burn down DC. All of us are gonna sit out. They would have had to give up. And what happens is, while DC would have burned truly, they would have retired to Britain. They would have gotten their money and retired there. and get just the same amount of cash. Because they have data from America, right? They would sink the United States as an insurance policy because the Americans didn't want to pay up. As the so look, here's the other passive aggressive. Congress replaced the Embargo Act with the Non-Intercourse Act, right? There was a married relationship between Britain and the United States, and it got established with George Washington in the Pleiades back in 1776. So now we got the Non-Intercourse Act in 1809. If people want to pretend this doesn't, that's fine. America doesn't seem to like to believe any of this stuff. Right? The Embargo Act. They were embargoing against the Pleiades. They did a breakup. This is a spiritual deal. Right? President Thomas Milama to British and French molestation of U.S. merchant ships. That's sort of what was going on because you don't want to pay for anything, so you're a prostitute, right? You don't pay, you got to be a prostitute. That's reality. They didn't want to make that choice because the Americans kept protesting. They didn't want to. Because if they fully sided, wouldn't the American public kill them? They should have took the risk and betted on the British ships. And what happens is they would take over the Americas again. I would have gamed. Assuming I even wanted to engage in this venture. I would have sided. If you're going to politics, you're engaging in a lot of danger. No, you cannot go wait to settle for that short because something worse comes after the short. And that is the prelude conflict to World War I. The rise of Germany. No, that's the thing. Do I care at the end of the day? Whether we fixed anything, I don't know. We don't really like to talk about anything spiritual. We don't really want to talk about any of the actual history of what's going on. Can anything as an SJW? Do you really think anything can be fixed? They should have all absconded the White House, go back, and then say, "Hey, we'll bet on our intuition, right? We can sink all the infrastructure in the United States because they had the data, right? They did first-time purchases for everything. Their goal is to create enough fear-mongering so the American public kind of just attacks each other. People don't want to gamble like that. And in the right move, Britain gives them control again, and they get more money, right? In the end, twice as much, perhaps." Because the other countries like, hey, I'm impressed by this. Other countries, even the ones that you're colonially ruling, will even aid you. As long as you, and then you install new people, right? A lot of slaves, maybe work for cheaper. Now, this is wrong from a moral perspective, but on the other hand, Americans didn't pay the politicians anything. They're afraid. They should have moved. You shouldn't be surprised if the politicians betray you if you don't pay them anything. People lie about salaries all the time. Anyways, I'll end it here. This is a pretty interesting topic.